What is up, my powerful mates of YouTube? My name is Aussie Marcel, and in today's video I'm going to be recommending the top 5 winter fragrances that I've been wearing over the last few weeks. And these are all fragrances, bar one, that have come in at under $100 Australian. So if it's cold where you are, if it's wintry where you are, these are going to be worth looking into. So if that sounds good to you, let's get into the video.
Die Verbrennung der
Starting things off, we've got David Beckham's Classic. This fragrance is one that I sprayed on my hand earlier just to get a good idea of the performance. And it was about 2 hours ago, 2 sprays to the hand, it's still quite strong. There's a little bit of sweetness, there's sort of like an aromatic and woody quality to this one. There is like a fruity, sort of like a subtle fruity opening to this. And then that sort of dries away into a more aromatic, woody, masculine fragrance. At about $15 Australian at Chemist Warehouse. I've even seen it lower than that at places like Priceline, where I have seen bottles go for about $10. It is a pretty good value scent, and it isn't so strong that you can't overspray this one. So if you're somebody that really doesn't like spending over $20 on fragrances, there are plenty of people like that out there, and I completely agree with their methodology about it. Don't overspend on fragrances. You know, these are, at the end of the day, a more luxury item, but if you can get something cheap that still smells good and masculine, then that is a positive thing. And David Beckham's Classic is a great option for you. Performance is solid. You're looking at about 5 hours with 3 or 4 sprays. If it is warmer where you are, if you are in a warmer climate, go with Classic Blue instead. That sort of smells like the Nautica fragrances. This is more aromatic, it's a little warmer, it's a little woodier, better for the colder weather and colder environments. Check this one out. Next up, we've got Jacques Pog's Silver Scent. Now, recently a lot of people have been telling me that this is pretty popular in Sydney, so if you're a Sydney sider or if you're somebody that's in Sydney a lot, let me know in the comments below if people around you are actually wearing this one. I don't smell this one very often in the wild, and it is a very recognizable fragrance. It's got that grape Fanta, that grape soda kind of quality to it, and it also smells like, in my opinion at least, fabric softener. It smells beautiful, it's very powerful. You only need about 2 sprays of Silver Scent, and it'll last upwards of 12 hours. For the price, at about $35 Australian from Chemist Warehouse, this is one of the best value scents on the market. Between Silver Scent and Silver Scent Intense, which has a little bit of synthetic oud and a little bit of synthetic rose, but they're not very prominent. Both Silver Scent and Silver Scent Intense smell pretty close to one another, so if you can only find one or the other, it doesn't really matter. They're both worth picking up, especially at $35 Australian. It is a beautiful smelling fragrance. It's masculine and yet ultra clean. It's a very unique scent. Once you smell it, you'll understand what I'm talking about, and for the price, it's definitely worth checking out. Next up, we have Montblanc Legend. Montblanc's Legend is well known as a clone of Abercrombie & Fitch's Fierce, which is a much more expensive fragrance, but the performance for that one, from the sample that I tested, is no better than this, so you're better off spending about $50 to $60 Australian on Montblanc's Legend than you are spending $250 on Fierce. At least that's the price here in Australia. Yeah. Aromatic, masculine, a very prominent lavender note with this one. It's musky as well, ultra masculine. Like, if you're after like a purely masculine fragrance with no ambiguity to it whatsoever, this is going to be the fragrance for you. I love wearing this to work, I get compliments for it all the time, and I'm going to smell it again. This one is affordable, performs great at about 8 hours with 3 sprays. It can be a little strong, so if you're somebody that really doesn't want to make yourself known in a room, dial back the sprays a little bit, maybe just stick with 1 or 2 sprays. But Montblanc Legend, for the price, it's great value, it smells great. Most people are going to love the way this one smells. It evokes that sort of, that familiar, nostalgic vibe with people. People are going to ask you, I've smelled this before, where is it? And you can tell them that it smells like an Abercrombie & Fitch store if you want. But yeah. To my nose, this is not a common fragrance here in Australia. It smells fantastic. If you're a fan of maybe Ed Hardy's Skull and Roses, the men's version of that, that's also a clone of Abercrombie & Fitch Fierce. That can be pretty pricey nowadays and it doesn't perform as well as this. So check this one out. Next up, we've got one that is more difficult to find than pretty much anything else on this list, but if you can find it for about $80 Australian, it's well worth it, and that is John Varvatos' Dark Rebel Rider. This is a prominently leather fragrance with some amber notes as well, and an incense smokiness. Here is the packaging. It's like a biker jacket. One of the best designs of all time. Fleur de lis up there. It just smells like a well-worn leather jacket. Performance isn't amazing. You'd think a fragrance with these sorts of notes and accords would last, you'd think it would last for ages, but it's about a 6 to 7 hour scent with 4 sprays. Not the most potent, but in terms of how the fragrance smells, it comes across as very masculine, comes across as rugged, it comes across as handsome. It's just a great fragrance, and if you can find bottles of this, that, like, I've been to a few different chemist warehouses around Victoria and I have seen this one, so it is still out there in the wild. I'd highly recommend checking this one out. John Varvatos' Dark Rebel Rider is for the man that stands apart from others. It is for the lone wolf type. It is definitely a scent that isn't going to appeal to everybody, but for the men that do wear this, they're going to adore this fragrance. Personally, I think this is one of the best smelling fragrances of all time. I'm a sucker for a leather scent, and this one is leather through and through with amber and some smoky accords. Get it while you can, while it's still available. I highly recommend this one. And last but not least, the only fragrance that I'm featuring today that's over $100 Australian, and that's Dior's Fahrenheit. This is a late 80s, early 90s classic. Ultra unique, ultra masculine. This evokes a similar sort of vibe to Dark Rebel Rider, but it's a little more mass appealing. It's got this powerful gasoline, violet opening. When you first smell it, you go, oh, that's petrol. That smells exactly like petrol. But after you've lived with it a little bit, you're able to distinguish some of the more floral characteristics of it. It does have this very prominent violet note, and it's quite leathery as well. So initially when you smell this, it might be off-putting. It's going to come across as gasoline or petrol if you're here in Australia. And later on, after it macerates a little bit, it opens up with a more floral, very unique violet quality, and then that bleeds into this leathery, masculine, almost floral leathery scent that is highly unique, and it is exceptional for compliments. One of the best performing fragrances of all time. One spray of this lasts over 12 hours. It is nuclear. It is fantastic, and even though it's been reformulated again and again and again, Fahrenheit still stands the test of time. It is one of the best fragrances on the market. If you can find it for under 140, pick it up. This is one of those scents that you build your collection around. This is sort of like the linchpin of a man's fragrance collection. It is iconic for a reason, and it is simply one of the best of all time. So if you've ever worn any of these fragrances before, let me know in the comments below. What are some of your favorite winter fragrances? And until the next video, my name is Aussie Marcel, and I'll catch you guys around.